What's up, everybody? Troy Cartwright here. Welcome back to another episode of 10-Year Town. Get those questions in for the Q&A episode. It's happening real soon. If you got questions about the music industry, how publishing works, what's the weather like outside, whatever you want to know, submit those questions at 10yeartown.com, and we'll get those answered on an episode soon. Thanks. Today's guest is Allison Veltz Cruz. You know Allison from songs like Prayed for You by Matt Stell, Somebody Like That by Tennille Arts, and what you're going to get in this episode is a whole lot of wisdom about getting started, writing songs in Nashville. She goes through her whole journey, which I think a lot of us will relate to. We talk about the story behind writing Prayed for You and how special it was. And she says something later on in this episode about jumping out of the sky and building an airplane on the way down. And I loved that. And I know you guys are going to love this episode. So without further ado, here she is, Allison Veltz Cruz. Well, I always start this thing off with the same question, which is, how long have you been in town?
I moved to Nashville in 2011, January. So it's pretty easy to track it. So what's math?
13. Is that right?
13 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Where from?
New York City.
Okay. Did you grow up in New York City?
No.
Okay.
I was born in Alabama.
Okay.
And then we moved once a year growing up.
Oh, really? Was it like a military thing or
no
preacher thing or? I'm just guessing. I'm guessing jobs that move a lot.
Gosh, no one said the preacher thing.
And you don't have to tell me. I'm just
well,
being
it's just interesting. I mean, we're still trying to really honestly figure out what the moving was all about.
Gotcha.
Because my sister is a writer in town too, so we're close, and we kind of look back and like, why did we move? Like, I went to like 3 different first grades and 3 different fourth grades, and homeschooled 6th grade, and I dropped out of high school because we went bankrupt and became a family band. And then the family band, we were in DC at the time. And then the family band was signed to Atlantic Records and they moved us to New York City. And that's why I was in New York City.
Gotcha.
So then I left the band.
Okay.
And the family in this sort of like Shakespearean shift of
Gotcha.
my life. And then I was just like so dead broke in New York, like working every possible job, like without a high school education,
totally free.
I only knew music, and being signed to Atlantic with the family band, I guess, put at least some connections in my world that I could be like, I don't know, do you remember liking my voice? Do you want to like work with me or whatever? Because I was an artist at that time, and then I left, and it was just like, it was more a survival mode. It wasn't like, what does this dream mean to me? It's like, how can I eat? Right. It was more like necessity based. Yeah. So then I got a job at Ellen's Stardust Diner.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what that is?
I've been there.
Have you been there?
Yeah. My mom loves it.
Oh my gosh. I love it. That's awesome. I worked there for a year, and that was like the first time I made money in New York City. Okay. I was like, oh, wow, you can actually pay your rent in this town and take a breath and be like, okay, what do you want to do? Yeah. And so I started flying myself back and forth to Nashville because when I left the band, Laura moved here immediately. Okay. And
was that the end of the band, like when you left?
That was it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I allowed me leaving was I think a culmination of really everyone going, yeah, okay.
Gotcha. Yeah. It's time to
not my parents, but on the kid side, on the kid front.
Gotcha.
They were ready. I mean, yeah, it had been a while.
Yeah.
Felt like I was in the back seat of a car in a cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
Going in circles. And I was like, maybe I should drive.
Yeah. Yeah. I understand the metaphor for sure. It's like sometimes you don't know where the steering wheel is. Mm-hmm. So you go in life, in your career or whatever, it's like, I would like to go over there.
Yeah.
And you start looking around, you're like, oh, I don't have any control over this. Like, I need to redo this. Yeah. So that I can steer.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So you were working at the, what is it? Stardust Diner. What's the first word in front
Ellen's
of it? Ellen's Stardust Diner. And that is where your servers randomly break out into song, right?
Yes.
More or less.
No, that's, yeah. It would be like, 15 servers on staff, and there would be a list on the wall. And when your name was called, no matter what you were doing, you stopped and you sang a song in your list and you go to this like little karaoke computer situation, and you have these like mics. It's so funny because I had been in bands or in the family band and on the road with bands for my whole life.
Yeah.
And so like just music it just never wasn't. But I go into this diner situation, and you would think that all of that experience, I could kind of go in there and be like, oh, I got this. But man, it really was an education in like grabbing an audience who is really not there for you. I mean, they're there to eat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you're a part of it, but at the same time, no matter how high the note, if you forgot the fries, it's still like that. You're messing with people. You know what I mean? They got a real Broadway show to go to. So the constant humbling, you'll get the note on the receipt of like, you're going to be a star one day, and like a $40 tip, and you're like, oh, amazing. And then just someone, I just remember some tables just being so furious because you're so distracted at the same time, and you're like, and every server is like, I gotta make my dream come true. So it's not about the tables. It's definitely a funny, humbling
what an interesting dichotomy.
Yes, yes, of like you're the star, but you're subservient, and it taught me a lot though, for sure.
That's amazing. Yeah, my first like professional performing job as an entertainer, I worked at Hershey Park in Hershey, Pennsylvania.
Oh yeah, totally.
And I was in this band called the Boardwalkers. So we had like the Garth Brooks headset mic, and we had like a golf cart that had like speakers on it, and we would like pull up to random restaurants and pop out.
Wow.
And do our show.
No, that'll teach you.
And it taught me a lot. It was like also very humbling and some, it's like, well, this is close to the thing I want to do, but not quite.
Yeah.
But
whatever is quicker to tell you or to teach you that it's really not performing isn't really about you.
Right.
It's about who you're performing for. And so if you're stuck in your head or stuck in your own dream wanting to come true, I think that those situations will humble you to the point where it'll pivot. You're like, oh, what's everyone bringing in here today? How can I actually change your day?
And it's kind of, I don't think it's thought about this way a lot, but like being an entertainer, like it is like a service-based industry. Being a songwriter, we're trying to feed our own muse and honor our own muse, but you're also like trying to like do something that people want.
Right.
Yeah. And it's heady to think about.
Yeah. Well, and also just kind of make them feel seen.
Yeah.
Make somebody feel like somebody else understands what they're going through, and who can't maybe put it down in a song.
Yeah.
But we're doing that essentially for people. It is a service.
Yeah.
It's actually really such an honor when you look at it that way,
It is. And I mean, that's kind of what, when I'm doing my job as a songwriter, the best, I feel like it's when I'm like putting into a song a really complex emotion, something that is hard to explain, but you listen to the song and you're like, yes, I see myself in this song. I mean, all my favorite songs do that for me.
Right.
And that's the service I'm trying to provide, right? Is just doing that for other people at some kind of scale, right?
Yeah. And once you see that work in a real way, like out there, Prayed for You was my first #1 in town. Yeah. And it was a lot of people's wedding song. And so they took it, and it's like, this is mine. It's like not even about, it's like, this is my song. This is my story. And watching that happen to that scale, it was like, wow, this is such a powerful thing we have the opportunity to do.
It's crazy.
It's really cool. It's really frustrating, but really cool.
It can be.
Yeah.
Well, I want to talk about that, but let's go back a little bit. So you moved to Nashville.
I got an offer. I was still working at the diner.
Okay.
And I was flying back and forth and got an offer from Sony ATV.
Okay.
For a publishing deal.
Yeah.
And, or maybe they did, maybe they didn't. I don't know. When I look back, I think maybe I just heard something I really wanted to hear. And it was enough for me to just sell everything I had in New York. And I moved here January 4th, 2011 with $40 to my name. I hawked a guitar in Nolensville for my first month's rent here in a sublet. And I really, like, looking back, I don't know that it was a formal offer. I think they were just stuck with me by the time I got here, because I was like, well, I moved here and I have like a month left to, like, eat.
Yeah.
And so it ended up the deal didn't come through until, like, you know how those deals go. They're so long, the process. So, it came through, I think, a month and a half later. And I got my first Sony my very first publishing deal. So those aren't a lot of money, but I was a hundredaire in my mind. I was like, this is amazing. I can have, I can just make this work. And so, yeah, I just built, I jumped and built a plane on the way down.
Damn, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I guess you had a lot of experience in music. Did you have a lot of experience, like, writing songs? Was that like a different thing that you also had to figure out along the way, or did you feel like you knew what you were doing?
Yeah. When I first left the band, I was like, I never thought I was a writer, and I never wanted to be a writer.
Mm-hmm.
I was always, and I can't really figure out what it is. I don't think any of the kids in my family knew what they really wanted to do, because we went bankrupt and became a band to make money. So like, music was this odd, you do a regular job to make money, and then music is your dream. I didn't have that view of music. Music was like, this is how we're going to survive.
Yeah.
So, but I was always singing growing up, and I was like, okay, cool. So Laura and my dad, they wrote the songs, and I was fine with that. And then when I left the band, I was like, oh, I can't just hop on stage and press play and start singing. I have to figure out how to play a guitar and write some songs, because I left the band. It was more just kind of, again, survival. It's the only thing I knew, music.
What kind of rights were you getting put into on your first,
Are you talking about in Nashville?
Yeah.
Yeah.
With Sony ATV, like, what does that look like at the beginning for you?
What's really amazing looking back, and I think this is the best way to communicate my time in Nashville, is like, when I first got here, and my first rights were too good. They were too good. I was signed, and I was being pursued as an artist by a legit producer. And so who was super connected. And so my rights were like Hillary Lindsey and Luke Laird and Tom Douglas and Gordy Sampson and Barry Dean. Yeah. And I was like, I didn't know. I didn't know this community, because I just came from being like a rat in New York, just trying to make it work. So looking back, I was like, I can't believe I was in those rights. But my trek here has just been like a straight up to the ivory, and then like a hard plummet, and then like a tick, tick, tick.
Yeah.
Tick. That's been my trek in Nashville.
I think that is so much more common.
Is it?
Than you think. Mine was very similar.
Interesting.
Because same thing, when I moved here, I was immediately being looked at as an artist. So you're getting put in all these rooms with incredible people.
Yeah.
Very similar list to yours, or the rooms that I was in. And you're like, well, this is the way it is.
Right.
And then something changes.
Yeah.
Like my record just took a long time to come out. So even in that time, like, it had already changed,
Yeah.
And then, you kind of.
You sink, and then
And then you find
either go home, or whatever home would be to anybody else.
Right.
I don't know what version that would have been for me, but you either go home, or you figure out how to start your own ladder and start from the bottom, a better kind of bottom.
Yeah. And I think one of the best lessons that I learned along the way, and I'm sure you can relate to, is like, you find your people that are, I call them like your co-conspirators in this, life that we get, your fellow soldiers in the trench, or whatever you want to call it. But then you kind of start to climb back up the ladder.
Yeah.
But now you're with your people, and it feels a lot more stable.
Yeah.
Right. It's like a little bit more in your, at least I feel like it's a little bit more in my control now.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if it actually
I don't know if
is
it
or
actually
not.
is. Yeah. No, that's interesting. I mean, it was definitely a slow climb back up because the artist was like this habitual thing that I was pursuing because I was I always assumed that it was going to be that way.
Yeah.
But I think I had a real healthy moment of putting it down. And once I put that down and decided to be a writer, just a writer,
Yeah.
that trek up started to go a lot faster.
And when did you do that?
2016.
Okay.
End of 2016, kind of 2017-ish. I remember the day. I literally remember the day.
Was that a hard decision for you at the time?
It was a hard process and a really easy decision once the process was done. I mean, I honestly just felt compelled to pray different. Just
Really?
like God, I don't know. It was a God thing. It was like, what do you really want outside of what you think you want or what you think you're supposed to want? What do you want your life to look like?
Yeah.
And I just wrote it down. I was like, well, does this look like a touring artist, or does this life that you want really look like that?
Yeah.
And I had been plucked from situation to situation and my whole life. I had no roots ever, no solid ground. So like, why would I want a touring life? Why would I want to mimic that, you know? And I just figured out I just really wanted to kind of stay put. I love Nashville for that. It's such a great place to stay put.
Yeah.
And that looked more like music was all I knew, and that life looked more like a writer. And by the time I came to that, and it took work, like soul work.
Yeah.
By the time I came to that, it was an easy decision, I guess is my question, or my answer to your question.
Yeah. It's beautiful. I love that.
Wow, thanks.
And then, so, okay, 2016-ish, you're doing like, all right, full-time writing thing now.
Mm-hmm.
This is my focus. How did that sort of, I guess, like, that culminated? I mean, there are many moments along the way, but like one of those moments was Prayed for You.
Mm-hmm.
How did like that sort of, how did that come to be?
Prayed for You?
Yeah, like and like how did you start writing with? Because that was with Ash Bowers and Matt Stell, right?
Matt Stell, yeah.
So like, I don't know. I mean, tell me about the ride.
Yeah, that Prayed for You is such an interesting song to talk about because it was. I mean, we do this and we write these songs, and we come up with these titles, and we just figure out what's a great way to like land that twisty title and do that bluebird clapper first chorus, you know?
Yeah. This
just wasn't that. This was a moment that was so real to my story and so God whispered that there's no duplicating it. I basically wrote, I knew Matt Stell is my sister's husband's cousin.
Okay.
So I knew Matt. He was coming to town, and I knew him for a while. But Ash, I was doing a Bluebird round with Jimmy Allen, and Ash was there, and he heard a song that he liked that I played, and he was doing some sides, I think on Dustin Lynch at the time. Maybe I'm getting that wrong, but he came up to me, well, this, that, whatever, why don't you just write with an artist that I'm working with, Matt? I'm like, oh, I know Matt, sweet. So we booked the write for May 11th, 2017. And so that was just a write that happened after I did a Bluebird round, which is that's normally the trek that happens, right?
Yeah. And how many, I mean, it happens all the time. It's like producer or publisher is like, I have this new artist, you guys should write.
Totally.
And then you do it.
Yeah.
And you
never know when the, hey, you guys should write can turn into actually something really substantial, like in your world.
Yeah.
But, May 11th is the date. And this drill, we just have dates on our calendar that we have rights. It's never really that big of a deal. It's just like, that's the right that's happening.
Yeah.
But in my world, on May 1st, I was baptized late in life.
Yeah.
May 5th, I was set up to sing a song at a wedding with someone I don't know in Atlanta.
Okay.
And went and sang the song with that someone. And then we ended up talking for 3 hours the next day on May 6th. And this is my now husband. Like we have been together since that moment. And then on May 11th, he was like, Kyle, my now husband, was like, I want to drive to Nashville and take you out on a date. And so in my calendar, I had a date with a guy that I just met.
Yeah.
And a write with Matt Stell and Ash Bowers that morning. And so, I mean, I was just looking at my journals and going, because I came to faith later. So I was praying later in my life.
Yeah.
And in this really concentrated 2016 time into 2017. And I looked through my journals and I was like, okay, this seems lofty, but I think that the guy I'm going to have a date with tonight, I think I prayed for you. I didn't know you.
Yeah.
I didn't know your name, but I've been praying for you. And so that the back half of the chorus, it's hard to imagine bigger than I could fathom, but didn't know you from Adam.
Yeah.
But I prayed for you. That came to me while I was getting ready. And I was like, it made me cry.
Yeah.
And then I brought it into the room, and that little back half was enough to structure around. But that, I mean, it's just that you can't.
Well, it's such a powerful song. I remember the first time I heard it, and like I'm trying to did the song get like picked up by another label like
yes.
after? Okay. So this was before that.
Okay.
This was when it was just starting. So I heard it on the radio, but it was late. Like it might have been like 3 a.m. Like I might have been driving back from a gig or something.
Before conversions.
I remember I was in East Nashville and I heard it and I was like, I don't know what this is, but this is a hit. Like you just heard it. I heard it one time and was like, this is a monster song.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
And it was.
Yeah.
It was a monster for sure.
What a cool, because I had been, straining in this town, just trying to make anything work. And that felt like the easiest 10 days, 11 days of my whole world. I just felt like it was so God orchestrated, the entire thing. And
did it, you wrote it in 2017.
Yes.
It came out in 2019, right? Or did it come out earlier?
It went in 2019. So October 2019, it went number one, but it had I wrote it 2017, but I think it was released in 2018. So it was a 63 weeker, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
When did you realize, like, because at the time he was like, he had a little machine behind him, but it was like an independent kind of a thing, right?
Yeah, it was Ash was managing, but he had such a success story with Jimmy that this now new artist that he's managing is kind of, going to go along that track, but he didn't have a record label.
Gotcha.
So it was super in the beginning phases, and a record label kind of unfolded honestly around the song.
Really?
And the whole records thing.
Yeah.
Ash and Barry Weiss out of New York heard that song. And so when I first left the band and I was in New York City, there was a publisher. Her name was Randy. Her name is, she's still with us, folks. Hi, Randy. Randy Rosano came to see me at a show that I was like trying to do, but she loved me. She was like, I don't know what to do with you. I want to set you up on co-writes or whatever. So those are my first co-writes in New York, which were funny. But she prayed for you, and she sent it to Barry. And that's how that whole thing.
No way.
Yeah, started. Wow. Yeah, it's so funny.
That's wild.
Yeah, the power of a little song. I feel almost completely unresponsible for writing that thing.
I mean, it's a dream. Like that, like the whole story of it is like, it's a dream.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, like, it's so hard to realize. And it's something that I tell myself all the time. It's like, you catch that lightning in a bottle. Eventually, like, all of those things, literally a whole label is like sort of built around a song, and a whole career is started from a song. Like, you can't plan that.
Yeah.
It just, it happens.
Yeah.
And that's why you kind of got to like show up on May 11th and do the right.
Yeah.
Because you just never know.
You never know. Yeah. That's so funny.
That's crazy. What was there a certain point along that, you said it was 63 weeks or something? At what point did you know, like, this is real?
There were several points that it got kind of realer and realer.
Yeah.
Not a word. We're writers.
It's fine.
I will say that I had, whether it was me being naive, because I had never had a song I never had a song released to radio.
Gotcha.
I just was like, yeah, this will go.
Yeah.
I mean, really the whole time. I and I would hawk it. Like I watch it like a hawk, that's me. I'm kind of just that way.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I knew when it went from new boots to hot country. Like I knew when it went even from playlist to playlist.
Yeah.
And so I watched it the whole time. But I think on a deep level, I was like, there's something about this song. This is it. And then, unfolding around me too was my marriage with Kyle. I mean, we got engaged like in November and got married that December, and he had a little girl because he had actually just lost his wife when 2 months prior to that wedding that we met at. And so his story too, just the parallel story, all of that, the power in all of those stories, I guess just gave me this like, yeah, this thing will probably go.
Yeah.
I had that confidence.
That's crazy. Yeah. It's like, yeah, this is going to work out.
Yeah, this feels God breathed.
Yeah. What a special story.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I'm really grateful, very grateful that my testimony, honestly, is so intertwined with my very first number one. And I couldn't think of I would never think that was going to be my move to town story, but that is the best version of my move to town story I could possibly have. Yeah. And I don't feel like I had anything to do with it other than showing up.
Well, that's it, though.
Yeah, that's really it.
Yeah, we had Emily Landis on the
her.
pod, and she was talking about her first number one with Gabby Barrett, and she said like it was like I think she called it like dominoes of dreams coming true.
Yeah,
like it was just like one into another
Totally. Yeah.
And that reminds me of your story. It's cool. It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
So kind of not long after that, you had another number one, right? Mm-hmm. With I'm blanking on the name, but I know how it goes.
Please keep this in there. You want to start that over?
No.
I'm just kidding.
Somebody
Tennille Arts. Somebody like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was cool too. I was like,
also another one.
Another 63 weeker.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes. And another artist who hadn't proved themselves on radio and proved themselves with the song. So I had kind of two of those back to back, which was really just interesting and cool as a writer.
Yeah.
To watch a song drag something up.
Yeah.
And that's just it's such an honor to be a part of that, because it's more than a song at that point. It's like you're in, you're in as an artist. I love that. I love being a part of that.
Yeah.
I could never plan that either.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
And that was like that kind of happened like all during the shutdown and stuff. So it's probably just a crazy ride.
They released that to radio January 2020. And we just had all of the pipe dream. We knew the song was just like special, Yeah. And it had a great, great radio team, great artist, great song, great look, great everything, and then March hits, and it's such a testament to the art, to all of those things, to the power of the song and the artist and the radio team, that even despite the fact that she had never been on radio tour. So she was Zooming, meeting with PDs, but they still took I don't know whether it was 60, one's 61, one's 63. I can't remember which one's which.
Long rides.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And during COVID, some of those got really long also.
Oh yeah.
Just in general.
Even longer. But I think her and Nico Moon were the only number ones in 2020, country number ones that were brand new artists.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
So crazy.
Really.
And didn't even go in 2020. It went in
21.
April.
Wow. Yeah.
I had
is like 60
just had a
weeks.
baby. Yeah.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. To me, both those number ones are like sort of close together. I guess there's a year and some change apart. But did it change the rooms that you were getting into as a writer, or was it just sort of like, we talk about kind of making your trek back up the tower?
Mm-hmm.
Did it just sort of feel like, everything was the same, but maybe a little better?
I think maybe the latter.
Yeah.
It's funny. I guess it teaches you too that like the coveted number one is really just like a great extra stepping stone in town, and not necessarily like a finish line.
Yeah.
I think it's better talking points for you get a better talking point for yourself and booking your rooms. And my company was interesting at the time. And so, yeah, I think that they got a little better, but I still really had to kind of keep on my toes.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Keep grinding.
Keep grinding. Yeah. Because they were new. The artists were new, and it was a pandemic kind of hangover feeling. I mean, I was, I can't remember, NSAI or AIMP. I won Rising Songwriter in 2020. I won 10 songs I wish I wrote in 2020. All of which, CSAC awards, all of which never had award shows. And so I didn't, those things kind of can propel because people see you and people go, oh yeah, that's right. Okay. You wrote, and they can do a lot to like book other stuff, but they didn't happen that year. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's like you, I don't know if you're insane like I am, but like you think about those moments, you're like, yeah, I got a little speech that I'm writing in my head all the time,
Yes.
that you're going to get to give. And like, I don't know. I can't imagine what it would be like to just kind of not get to do that.
I know. I was like, it was just, it was kind of a funny part of the story that just made me go, okay, well, I got to do this again when there's no pandemic, I guess. What's next?
Yeah. Well, what kind of stuff do you do like to prepare for writes, like to be inspired? Are you like a big, do you listen to a lot of music? You reading books, like watching movies? Like what's kind of your, I don't know, what's your well that you're going to?
I've been thinking actually a lot about this recently because I feel like I tumble into the right and just sort of really feel out the dynamic of the room each time. And I don't know that I have a process other than, growing up, going from school to school to school to school, constant new friends, constant new environments, constant new social dynamics to read all the time, new cafeterias of social dynamics. I feel like writing is just another one of those rooms I'm plopped in, and I don't really think about it much before I get there, other than really special times where I'm like, ooh, this is something and I want to bring this into the room. But it's definitely not a process that happens every time. I really kind of roll with it.
Yeah.
I kind of just roll into the room.
Yeah.
I rolled into this room.
Just see what happens.
Yeah.
I'm the same way.
I feel like you're the same way.
Sometimes I feel bad.
Yeah.
I'm showing up to a write that I'm feel excited for, and I'll like really psych myself up the night before or the morning of. I'm like, all right, gotta think of a great idea.
Yeah.
I just never do. It just doesn't come.
Well, I do bank those. Those are idea banks are great.
Yeah, a little hook book or whatever.
Yeah, and but I often find that even if I'm scrolling through them and saying them, they turn into other things, beautiful, like other things in the room. They're not always, because it's this thing that we do. It's so collaborative. And so as I'm bringing it, but it is good to have just something, because we're in the business of thin air. I mean, we bring from thin air a intellectual property asset into potentially into our world. That's our job. And so to have just something, some kind of like material to start from helps. Yeah. But there are a lot of wonderful writers who bring in pretty baked ideas, like wow, thanks for the song, could have been 100%, or I'll help you write like the second half of the bridge, you know.
Yeah.
But I tend to just, if it's going to be anything, it's going to be like this little ramp and what can kind of like in a room. And I always find the best songs are something that happens in spite of the OG idea that somebody
Totally
brought in, you know?
Yeah, I totally relate to that. I love I don't know why I've been thinking about this a lot, but like when I look at my hook book, a lot of the times it's like a little piece of steel, and then my co-writer comes in and they hit it, and there's a little spark.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what everything I'm doing. I'm like, okay, I'm just trying to get some ideas sparking here. And then once it does, for the most part, I am capable, or the co-writers are capable that I'm in the room with, of like taking any good idea and like getting it home.
Constructing it. Yeah.
Yeah. But the hardest part is always like, what are we going to write about today?
Exactly. Yeah. So I guess, I find it good to just kind of like fail.
Yeah.
Fail until it turns into something.
Totally.
So it's not a silent room.
Yeah. You gotta have some, sometimes you're scrolling pretty far down in the hook book.
Totally.
Going, oh my God.
And sometimes some rooms just like, there's not a song in every room.
Yeah.
There's not a song in the room today. Like,
true.
That's okay. I think those happen less and less, which is good, because those will just ruin, those are hard, we take it so hard, y'all.
If I can't get a song, I'm feeling so bad.
Oh man, I know.
I had a week last year. It's like 3 days, 3 days in a row of just like horrible. Something was wrong with me. And maybe I was in a bad place. And like one of the days, I think we like eked out a song, and I'm just like calling my publisher driving home. Like,
I quit.
I think I'm done.
Yeah.
I don't think I can do it anymore.
Coffers are empty. Totally.
This is it. It's over. But then you just get up the next day and it's back.
Yeah.
It comes back.
Yeah. That one song that happens that goes, oh, okay, I can do this.
Yeah,
I'll
turn it all around.
Get you through. Yeah.
I feel like your journey is like so fresh anyway, but what kind of advice would you give yourself if you were sort of moving back to town? If you were starting over in Nashville, what would you say? And it doesn't have to be, it could be whatever. It could be life advice,
Right.
Just what's something that you wish
I did differently?
Well, the target audience for this podcast, right, is like, I just wanted to make
aspiring.
I wanted to make something that was inspiring, and I wanted to make something that basically I wanted to make the podcast that I wish existed when I moved to town.
Got it.
Because I moved here and I just, it's just fumbling around in the dark for years.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if I would have been willing to receive this information.
Yeah.
But that's sort of the context for
that's
what I'm
great.
looking for.
I know, because I honestly I listened to this. I watched this podcast.
Are you watching on YouTube?
I watch it on
or the clips
Instagram.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that
That's great.
But I'll listen to it in my car. Like even for somebody 14, 13, whatever math is years in. This podcast is helpful and cool, and
That's awesome.
Makes you feel kind of like this is really a community of people.
Yeah.
And it's a small community, and what we do is like it's so almost it could, not mundane as in it's not interesting, but it's so normalized to us, but it's like completely abnormal to anyone out, not living this life. So it's like, oh yeah, all right. I feel like seen, even as me. So like, I love that about it.
Right.
So that said, what is the question?
The question is, what kind of advice would you give to somebody just sort of getting started on their journey in Nashville, or thinking about starting a journey in Nashville?
I think that maybe every given song was when I writing songs at first, and then staring at the very song that I wrote and wanting that thing to become whatever. A lot of your time in Nashville starting out is going to be just about the next song. And I hate that, because you want the one that you just wrote to mean something. But it's really just about getting in the next day and writing another one and then writing another one. And I remember one of my first publishers, Kim Wiggins, who I love, she said to me when I first moved here, she was like, I find that writers after just about their 250th song really start getting it. They start locking in. And I looked at her like 250 songs.
Are you kidding me?
Are you kidding me? Like how are you willing to wait that long? And everything was so survival mode too for me. I'm like, I need the song like yesterday. I need it, but this Nashville community, this writing experience is it's like a seed. It's like planting a seed. It's a slower process, and sometimes it's like if that idea ain't working, just like move on to the next. Okay, if that song wasn't whatever, write the next song. You're the factory.
Yeah,
you're not the song. You are the song factory. You can do it again. Like just go write the next song.
Yeah.
And I say that because I would get super hyper focused on, is this song a hit? Like, I'd move to town, write my third song, and like, would Carrie Underwood, or do you think she wants to, because I just was so, I wanted something to win, or needed something to win. So it's about the next song a lot.
Yeah. That's great advice. I think
I still have to take that advice, actually. I still don't follow that as well.
I oftentimes listen back to these episodes, or I'll see, like, Instagram will serve me a clip of my own podcast, and I'll see something that I said, and I'm like, I need to listen to my own advice.
I know.
It's really
yeah, I know. I'm
it's
actually
hard.
the worst. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really hard. It's hard to stay like sane sometimes.
Yeah.
I feel like.
Yeah.
But it is just keep going.
Yeah. And I will say too that if you find that thing that makes you,
yeah,
and just you, and there is a market to what we do, and to the country music market is a market, and you want to write towards that, and you don't want to contradict it. But the best case scenario is your very unique thumbprint within the parameters of that country market, if that's where you're going for. Like, what is that? And how can you bring that within those? That's the sweet spot. Yeah,
that's how you like differentiate yourself in this thing. And then once, people will run to that.
Yeah.
Once
oh my gosh. Yeah.
But it's hard to like, it's hard to figure that out.
Totally.
Yeah. And sometimes you can be doing it for a long time before people even catch on.
Yeah. And sometimes it happens accidentally. Like you didn't do it on purpose, but you realized that, you kind of like you made your way in. What makes you unique made your way into a song, and you're like, I don't even really know how I did that, but it happened. Yeah. If you keep doing it, it's like this constant, just keep going.
Yeah. It's like when sometimes my publisher will tell me like, yeah, I mean, that sounds like a Troy Cartwright melody.
Right.
And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Right.
Like, I don't even know what that is.
Right.
She's like, no, but it's like, it's in all these songs.
But you think about like Marcus Hammond.
Yeah.
Like those Cowboy Take Me Away, Born to Fly, like the chord structures and that is so not stock, but it's so country market. Like it's so within the bounds of what country music listeners want to hear.
Yeah.
But it's so him at the same time, like so special. Hardy is such a great example of that.
Amazing example.
Pure broetry.
Yes. And it's it's like you talk about it being a market. It's like the market came to him.
Yeah.
And he was ready.
Yeah. He was like, hold my beer.
Yeah. He had it.
Yeah.
He'd been doing it for a long time. So
yeah.
It was awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for
here.
having me.
I appreciate it.
I appreciate you.
Yeah.
For doing this podcast.
Oh, well, thank you. All right. That's it. That's the pod. See you later. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of 10-Year Town. If you're still listening, you must have liked it. So we hope that you will leave us a rating or review on Apple or Spotify, or give us a subscription on YouTube. It's all free. Don't cost you nothing. But we appreciate you being here, and thank you for supporting the 10-Year Town community. See you next week.